missing anything? I don't know. There's a whole lot of things that I was co-signing on because like we were talking about Prince for a minute. I'm like, oh yes, please, yes, please, my man right over here. And like I've named numerous like guitar colors after him. We've got a big pointy V that's called the Revolution because it was a new model. It was a new model that I was making a guitar. I had this really cool like wood that I made a neck out of, and I'm like, I don't really know what I'm gonna do with this. Let's make a big pointy V because I love big pointy Vs. And I'm like, well, I don't really know what I'm gonna call this. And Purple Rain is one of those movies where if I'm flipping through and it's on, it's on. I've also got like, so at my desk here is just like I've got like a bunch of cassettes that I use as decoration, and like Purple Rain is in here too, next to En Vogue and Body Count. But we went.
See, that's all good.
We're alphabetical because record store employee. We've got the Bangles, we've got Bang Tango, we've got Jeff Beck, we've got Body Count, we've got Lindsey Buckingham, we've got Cinderella. What was I talking about? So then I'm watching TV and it's like, and there's that point where it's like, ladies and gentlemen, the Revolution. And I'm like, oh fuck, that's what this is called now. So that Revolution, that's, so I love Prince. So you were talking about, and at that time, when like Little Red Corvette was a single, and I was 12, I was listening to Metal Health and Shout the Devil and Two Pass for Love and a couple of Van Halen albums, and then I see Prince and I see that video and I'm like, oh, well, this is something really, really cool. And so I loved that. And, it's kind of before I became aware of genres, but yeah, like,
I think Prince fits in this conversation quite comfortably. And I think the one thing that probably keeps him from being almost left out of the conversation altogether, because his music is very, very rocky.
That's the Minneapolis sound. Yeah, right. I mean, you have all these black people in Minneapolis and one radio station, and it's playing rock most of the day, and in like 2 hours of funk.
Those tones that he has, and all the guitar players that come out of that Minneapolis era, Jesse Johnson and all that stuff, those guys sound exactly like all of their hair metal contemporaries at the same time. They're probably all using the same rat gear. The same distortion levels and envelope filters and everything else
for their solos anyway, not as much for the rhythm, depending on the song.
Jesse had that cool half black half red Explorer in the was that Little Red Corvette video?
Well, that's going to be Des Dickerson.
Oh my god, I'm
but
the
Jesse
worst.
with the time, and Jesse didn't record anything on, I think, on at least on the first.
Never mind.
I don't think anybody. I think most of that stuff is all Prince and Morris Day. Yeah. But Des Dickerson doesn't have the sick ass Explorer that you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm the worst. I'm terrible.
Rising Sun.
It's
well, that's the thing. You've got to coordinate, right?
You do. You do.
It's important. That's the So we're talking about like this. What makes hair metal, and all that stuff. It's like, so we've got this musical movement for wherever it started and all that. It's going past Black Sabbath. And maybe it's a response to what's going on in the various political climates, and like we're going to have a good time, and we're going to have loud guitars, and we're going to be rock stars, and that's kind of the whole thing. And so like you had to have a guitar that looked a little different. Nobody was playing Les Pauls or Stratocasters, and that really informed the guitars that I built. And you have to just be a little bit extra, and I think that's what that whole kind of movement, I guess for lack of a better term, was. And like all movements do, you have the beginning, and it explodes, and then it's like, oh shit, we got to find the next version of this so we can keep this going. And then there just becomes this rejection of this as a society when like the new thing comes out, which is kind of what started to happen when Guns N' Roses hit. Even like when New Jersey came out, Bon Jovi's New Jersey, like they had a little, like, I understand we were still Aquanetting on New Jersey, but like it was a little different. It was kind of like what you're talking about with when Girls came out. And granted, like Motley Crue always changed their look with each album. But even Bon Jovi looked a little different. And I remember I didn't really like Slippery When Wet because it was just like little but but my best friend, he was like super into Bon Jovi, and like New Jersey comes out, and I'm like, oh, this is, I mean, it's still anthemic and all that, but it wasn't quite as saccharine to me. And whatever, I was a teenager, but so like Guns N' Roses really kind of made that happen, and then that became, everybody started to look like that, and then all the record labels are like, well, we got to find the next Guns N' Roses, and and then you have bands like Alice in Chains, and like Jane's Addiction kind of gets a little, but I think Jane's Addiction was also kind of one of those bands that kind of steered it a little bit away.
They were
because
smart
like
enough to stay away from the moniker and be played on 120 minutes opposed to Headbangers Ball, and that was
right.
That's why they're looked at to this day, even though they're friends with all those bands.
Yes.
They played shows with all those guys.
Yeah.
This is why when Pascual brings up the fact, like we talk about this after the fact, right? This is a post facto calling it hair metal. At the time, maybe you called it pop, or I've even heard the term fashion metal. And that I think comes out of
thing,
the 83 US Festival is a major turning point, because people forget there's an US Festival in 82. And it's one day, not 3. And the original US Festival was or the second US Festival, 83. Toure, can you whenever you move something, it's
sorry. I'm taking notes. I'm sorry.
Can you take them quieter, please?
Yeah.
The 83 US Festival is broken down into 3 days, and the Hard Rock Day outsold the main day with like David Bowie as a headliner to almost 2-1. So there's about 300,000 people in San Bernardino to see the Hard Rock Day. To give you an idea of how crazy that is, I worked in music festivals in the back end side, doing numbers and stuff, not doing fun stuff like being on stage. I was in an office. And Coachella, I was there. The last Coachella I was physically at was the year Beyonce was there. And that was so big, they opened up the grounds. That was 125,000 people a day. Again, the Hard Rock Day with a lot less bands, over 300,000 people. And we've all seen the footage of Quiet Riot doing Metal Health and 300,000 people doing this. Yeah. And that really is this moment where you see that this music really is maybe more important than even the record labels think it is, because they don't know what's popular at the time. They're giving money to people with synthesizers, right? Thriller is a thing. And I think regardless of the popularity of this music, it's always like, well, how do we make it more accessible to get into more homes, right? We did a whole show on the music of the year 1982. And when you talk about an album like Thriller, Michael Jackson in 82 incorporates a hell of a lot more rock elements into this record, because he understands that to reach more people, I have to have a broader sound.
How much of that is MTV, though, you think? Because, like Run DMC has rock elements very early on.
MTV comes out and says, we only want, initially, people.
It's a rock station.
We're a rock station. And a lot of the pushback they got from people like Bowie and then CBS Records, when they're like, we're going to pull all our shit if you don't play this colored guy. And we're going to tell everybody that you're not going to play this colored guy. I'm like, fine, we'll play the colored guy. And then you get a couple of colored guys. You get Prince and you get Michael Jackson. Both of these, again, Prince, crazy rock elements. We were just talking about that. And who's the band that's doing most of the Thriller stuff? That's Toto.
Yep. Right? Well, even the one song by Shalimar, when Shalimar is a huge R&B group, right, in the UK and black stations in the United States. But the one Shalimar song that MTV played had a great rock solo by Jesse Johnson. Jesse Jackson's rock solo
I'm not in Shalimar.
Stop having babies. I don't know how you'd make that a guitar solo, but he will find a way. Keep hope alive. But anyway, so Jesse Johnson plays this great rock solo on Shalimar's Dead Giveaway, and that I think was the only Shalimar song from that era that made its way to MTV. So I would imagine that, you know, a lot of funk groups and like pop groups felt compelled to infuse rock elements, partly because of MTV's
and hair metal.
dispositions.
I don't know if you guys agree with this. Hair metal, Motley Crue, Rat, Wasp, they're made for MTV because they have the look of metal, but the sounds you're getting out of some of these bands, they have really catchy hooks. The drumming isn't super complex. It's the tempos aren't too fast. The song lengths are about 3, maybe 4 minutes long. So this is stuff that's made for radio. It's super accessible. Only the good-looking guys survive, right? Because I think that's, I don't know if you guys agree with me. I think that's why Quiet Riot only really has Metal Health, and then they're forgotten by 86.
I think some of that is Kevin. So there's that. I remember, you know, so growing up in this time, I'll remind everybody about 4 more times. I remember going through like Hit Parader and Circus Magazine, and like I had all of those things forever. And there was always like, you know, Motley Crue versus Quiet Riot. And there's like articles and stuff. And I remember a quote from Nicky, whether he said this or not, and I think there's a good chance he did say that. He said some that the only reason Quiet Riot got signed was Kevin remembered to wear his wig that day.
Damn.
Damn. Spice. My man is spicy. And you know that there's something a little bit to, I mean, you know, to be fair to Quiet Riot, as you mentioned earlier, Metal Health was their 3rd record. When Randy was in the band, they were having one hell of a time trying to get signed. No one would touch them. And, you know, if you go and listen to Quiet Riot 1 and 2, you can hear why. They weren't like those. Look, I am a bit like Randy Rhoads is my guy. But like, if those songs weren't that good, just like the songs that I wrote when I was 17 and 20 and 23 and 24 weren't all that great. You could see little flashes of things. And yes, like the live Quiet Riot performances were Randy being Randy. That was when, you know, focus on the guitar player. And this is like, there's this kid who's amazing. And so they're going to have a big club following, but like the songs aren't quite there. Kevin's vocals on those first 2 albums are not good. And they're not. And if you can find them now, especially like on YouTube, whatever, listen to those things. They're not like Kevin's voice was not that good. He figured it out in time for Metal Health. His voice got stronger. He sounded more like, you know, he got the Kevin DuBrow sound, and it was good rock voice. But like none of those guys looked cool. Kevin did not have good hair. Kevin, poor guy. And yeah, I think that some of it, you know, I think it's tough that other than like, so Bang Your Head, Metal Health, that was a hit. They wrote that song. Yeah. But Come On Feel the Noise was not their song. And then, you know, there's a whole thing about, oh, we didn't want to record that song. And like, whatever, who cares? It was a huge hit. So, you know, that's good. That's what we're looking for. But like when their 2nd record or their 4th record, Condition Critical, comes out, there's 2 singles on that one. One's Party All Night. The other one is Mama We're All Crazy Now. Another Slade cover. And like, you know, so you can make the argument that maybe the songs weren't there to keep them going longer. But some of that is, you know, if your lead singer isn't hot at that era,
what killed yacht rock? What killed the popular music of this era? If we go back to 1982, we start looking at what #1 songs were. It's bands like Air Supply. Air Supply could kick everybody in the dick right now. No one would know who the hell was kicking them in the dick, because no one remembers what those motherfuckers look like. Christopher Cross could do backflips naked right now on screen, and no one would know who the hell that crazy old white guy was.